Welcome to The Explainer. So today, we're going to deconstruct a pretty chilling fictional scenario to really get our heads around the mechanics of a modern digital coup. We're talking about a takeover that happens not with a bang, but with the flip of a switch.
And this quote right here, it just sets the entire scene perfectly. Our story kicks off at 2 in the morning, where an entire nation is plunged not into darkness, but into a complete and frankly terrifying silence. So we're going to see this all unfold through the eyes of an investigative journalist named Zoya, right as she's discovering the very first signs that her world has been fundamentally and terrifyingly altered overnight. So the first alarm bell for Zoya, it's not actually a sound, it's the lack of one. Her encrypted secondary phone, her lifeline to this whole network of lawyers and activists, is just blinking red. No messages are getting through. The digital conversation has just stopped. Okay, but this is where it gets really clever and kind of sinister. Her main phone, it's showing full signal bars. It creates this illusion that everything's totally normal. But in reality, it's a ghost signal. It's completely cut off from the internet, from her office. It's basically a digital prison designed to look like freedom. So when Zoya actually heads out onto the streets, she sees the physical proof of this digital silence. The city's normal chaos is just gone. And at the checkpoints, the regular police are flanked by these masked soldiers with totally unmarked uniforms and some serious heavy-duty weapons. They're not checking papers. They're not enforcing some new law. They're just there. Their intimidating presence is the only law that matters now. And the final nail in the coffin? It comes when she gets to her office. The Independent Herald is sealed shut. And the reason? Emergency Edict 7-A. An edict that was never announced for an emergency that, well, never happened. The justification is just as silent and invisible as the coup itself.
Okay, so her paper's shut down, her contacts are gone, Zoya's got nothing left to do but start digging, and she's chasing one single terrifying question.
And this right here, this is the core puzzle of the whole thing. The takeover is obvious. You can see it, you can feel it in the silence, but its mechanism, its declaration, is completely hidden. It's a coup by omission. Finally, she gets her first real lead. A lawyer she knows tells her what's happened to the entire justice system. See, the courts haven't been stormed by soldiers. They've been paralyzed by a sudden, total, digital systems failure. Cases are just being administratively deferred. Justice is postponed indefinitely. And this is just a brilliant, terrifying tactic, right? They didn't need to declare martial law or suspend the Constitution. They just made the legal system technologically impossible to operate. By erasing its entire digital backbone, they made it totally useless without firing a single shot. So you've got to be asking, how is any of this even possible? Zoya's investigation now pivots away from the effects of the coup and starts digging into the technology that made it all happen. And a source gives her the answer, the core weapon behind all of this: smart filters, installed on the nation's main internet infrastructure. Now, don't think of this as a sledgehammer that shuts everything down. Think of it as a surgical scalpel. This tech, called Deep Packet Inspection, lets the regime look at every single piece of data flowing through the network and decide exactly what gets through and what doesn't. What this meant was the state had total control over the story. For anyone trying to get to outside news, social media, or encrypted apps, the internet was basically a black hole. But for official state communications, everything worked perfectly, which maintained the illusion of a functioning network, at least for them. And then Zoya finds it, the final piece of the puzzle, hidden in a secure server room at her office, a single, encrypted file that was downloaded just minutes before everything went dark. It's the complete, decrypted blueprint for the entire takeover. The file contains the entire blueprint, and it's codenamed Project Silent Sweep. This wasn't some chaotic power grab. It was a meticulously coordinated, three-pronged attack designed for maximum effect with absolutely zero public announcement. So let's break this down, because it's really a masterclass in dismantling a free society. First, digital decapitation. Use those filters to surgically remove the press and key politicians from the conversation. Then, judicial immobilization. Used a cyber attack to paralyze the courts. And finally, silent enforcement. Deployed these unmarked task forces to neutralize any opposition, making sure there were no dramatic raids for the world to see. I mean, think about that line for a second, pulled right from the document. The absence of a declaration is the declaration. That was the core philosophy of the whole operation. The silence itself was the announcement. It was this terrifying display of absolute control. I mean, why bother announcing you're in charge when you can just prove it by silencing everybody else?
Okay, so Zoya has the whole plan. The clock is ticking. She's got one last resort, one final act of defiance to try and shatter the silence that has just enveloped her entire country.
She finds an old emergency satellite uplink hidden in the office, a relic from another time for exactly this kind of worst-case scenario. She gets ready to send her findings to the outside world, and she knows that this one single act will end the manufactured silence, and with it, her own safety.
And she's smart about it. She doesn't just dump the file online. She uploads the entire package, the hard proof in the project file, the human context in her own video summary, and a plea for help tagged to every major news agency she can possibly think of.
The moment she hits send, that's it. Her time is up. She doesn't even wait for a confirmation. She just vanishes, leaving the decryption key behind as one final defiant message. She becomes the last whisper of a free press against a silent tyranny.
So, while this is a fictional story, it's also a pretty stark warning, isn't it? It shines a light on some very real vulnerabilities in our digitally dependent world. It shows how the core pillars of justice, media, and governance can be completely disabled without a single building ever being destroyed. And that really leaves us with one last, kind of chilling question to think about. As our societies get more and more intricately woven together with these digital threads, is the power to selectively cut those threads, to create targeted silence, the most potent and terrifying form of control imaginable? What happens when the most powerful weapon in the world isn't a bomb, but just the delete key?